Welcome back to Films Retold. Today we're going to break down Severance Episode 8. There will be spoilers, so if you've not seen the episode yet, you have been warned. If you enjoy this content, please remember to subscribe and like the video. Okay, let's get into it. Episode starts off with us getting a look at Irving's Audi as he enjoys a book outside with his dog. It starts getting dark outside, so Irving decides to go into his apartment and make himself coffee. This lends to the fact that any Irving is always tired at work. It seems his Audi likes to stay up late and paint. I know a lot of people suspected that Irving could have been a sailor due to the dirt under his fingernails, but we now have confirmation that he's in fact a painter. This scene also explains the black goo we seen when Irving falls asleep at work. The black goo is representing the black paint that Irving uses in its paintings. The paintings depict a long hallway with an elevator at the end shown to be going down. Now this is interesting because we actually see this same place later in the episode, so we'll get back to this later. This scene got me thinking that perhaps Irving's Audi is the one who produces the paintings for Lumon, because we see that he has painted the same thing over and over. Or maybe this is something Audi Irving is remembering from an experience his innie had. We then cut to the office where Helly is trying to complete her file before the deadline. Everyone seems super worried and invested in Helly being able to finish the file. Even Milchek and Cobel are watching her very closely, with Cobel basically cheering her on, saying that she knows that she'll make it in time. Cobel then informs Milchek that she wants him to schedule a wellness session for Mark. Milchek almost seems like he's against the idea, but it's unclear why exactly. Helly then completes the file, and her computer starts to play an animation showing Keir Egan on a mountaintop. This is the same image as the painting Irving says he was bothered by when talking to Bert. I wonder if all the innies got a personalized message like this, or if it only plays for the last person who completes the file. Next up, we cut to Mark inside Cobel's office as she's laughing for an uncomfortable amount of time. She then asks Mark if he's decided who he wants to stay for the waffle party, to which Mark replies, Dylan. Cobel reminds Mark that he could choose himself, but Mark says it's more of Dylan's thing. Cobel then tells Mark to see Miss Casey due to the stress of Mr. Grainer retiring. Before Mark leaves, Cobel thanks Mark and says,
Thank you. Lumon needed this.
Next, we cut to Mark's wellness session with Miss Casey. Mark immediately notices everything in boxes. When he asks Miss Casey about it, she informs Mark that Lumon has been blessed with a new wellness director, and that Miss Casey has been fired. Miss Casey tries to continue the wellness session like normal, but Mark is clearly troubled by this news. We learn in this scene that Miss Casey's innie form has only been alive for a total of 107 hours, and that the only time that she's awake is during these wellness sessions. This gives some clarity to what Cobel said previously about Miss Casey being a part-time innie. Miss Casey tells Mark that her longest time awake was when she was tasked with watching over Helly for 8 hours, and that is also her favorite time. Mark again says that there must be something we can do, and explains that they are people, not just parts of people. Cobel is watching all of this almost with a look of excitement for Mark coming to these realizations. Milchek then remarks to Cobel that it's good that they don't remember each other, and that it means the chips work. It's a win. Now, this is somewhat strange, because we've never been shown the chips to not work. In fact, the technology in the chips have been around longer than Mark has been working at Lumon. I'm starting to think that Mark may have been the first one to use Severance as a way to deal with the major trauma of losing a loved one. This would explain why Cobel is so invested in watching over Mark's Audi, because not even she knows if Severance will be enough to help Mark forget completely. It's really unclear what's going on here, and leaves us with more questions than it does answers. Cobel then tells Milchek to take Miss Casey back to the testing floor. As Miss Casey walks down the hall, we learn that this hallway is the same hallway as the one Irving was painting in the elevator going down. This somewhat gives credit to Irving's Audi being the one responsible for creating the paintings for Lumon. If Irving is not the painter for Lumon, then it implies that Irving has seen this location as an innie, and is perhaps painting it off of memory of his innie's experiences. Because this elevator clearly shows that it's going down, it means that the severed floor isn't really the basement like we've been told, and that there are even lower floors in the building. I suspect the lower floors are where the bodies of innies are stored, and when they are needed they can be activated at will. I don't think Miss Casey has a functioning Audi like the rest of the innies do. This also confirms that Petey was right, in that there are people at Lumon who never get to leave. Mark returns to MDR and lets the rest of the team know that Miss Casey was fired. Mark asks if everyone is sure that they really want to do this, referring to the plan to wake themselves up on the outside world. Before anybody could answer, Milchek shows up to give the team their rewards for completing the file. We learn that Dylan had requested a prize similar to Mark's Allentown reward, only it's a picture of the rest of the team. This leads to a pretty heartfelt moment between the team. I love these scenes so much because it really humanizes the characters as people, and not just work slaves. They all really care for one another in a way that we really didn't get to see in earlier episodes. We cut to Cobel entering her office, only to see Natalie waiting for her. Natalie shows Cobel the images of Helly hanging herself and tells Cobel that the board has decided to fire her. This angers Cobel, and she asks if the board is even there. This is when we get to hear the board say something for the first time.
Yes.
The board then concludes the call. Cobel obviously looks up to the board and makes me think that perhaps the board consists of Egans because of how much we've seen Cobel worship the Egans with her shrine at her house. We then cut back to Mark and Helly enjoying the party together as they discuss their plan to wake up as an innie on the outside. They share a moment together before being interrupted by Milchick, who ends the party and leaves. Milchick has obviously heard the news of Cobel being fired and is tasked with escorting Cobel out of the building. This gives the team the time that they need to go over the plan again. Mark gives the key card to Dylan and tells the rest of the team that when they wake up they need to find somebody they think they can trust and tell them everything. This will become important later in the episode. Irving, Mark, and Helly are waiting by the elevator to leave work. Before Helly goes up, she leaps out of the elevator and kisses Mark, saying, "In case we don't come back, or in case we do." Milchick escorts Dylan to his waffle party, and we learn that after you finish the waffles, you are treated to a dance which bears resemblance to the painting that was hung up outside of the wellness waiting area. Dylan leaves for the security room before the dance ends to get ready to start their plan. Audi Mark visits Cobel to invite her to the dinner party he's going to. Cobel at first tells Mark that she's not feeling like herself, but then changes her mind and decides to go only if she drives her own car. Mark shows up to the dinner party to be greeted by Rickon. Mark then tells Cobel that he plans on quitting at Lumon, and Cobel actually seems happy about this. She hugs Mark and tells him to do it, and that he needs to get away from them. Dylan is seconds away from waking Mark, Irving, and Helly up. Now, this is going to be interesting, because Mark is going to wake up into the arms of Cobel, and it's probably going to frighten him quite a bit. Helly seems to be at a dinner party herself, only much more fancy, and Irving will wake up painting. If you remember from earlier in the episode, Mark tells everyone to find someone they can trust. Well, for any Mark, the only person that he will think he can trust is going to be Rickon, because Mark got to read his book. In fact, I think any Mark is probably going to worship Rickon when he sees him there. The episode ends there, leaving us a major cliffhanger. I really enjoyed this episode. It showed us that no one is protected from being fired at Lumon, and I'm really enjoying the relationship between Innie Helly and Innie Mark developing. Next week, we should get to learn who Helly R really is and how all the Innies are going to react to seeing the outside world for the first time. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed this content, please remember to like the video and subscribe for future content like this. Thanks for watching.